The night the rain beat the roof like angry drums, Daniel pointed at his wife and called her dead weight. His voice cut through the grand dining room like a knife. He did not care that Emily sat in her wheelchair, her back held by a brace after a terrible spinal injury. He did not care that the maid Lila stood behind Emily with a folded smile on her face. He did not care that the house staff stood frozen, their hands on plates of steaming soup. Daniel was the king of this big bright house and he was angry. He said the maid worked harder, moved faster and looked better. He said his wife made everything slow. The words hit Emily like stones. Lila's hand rested on the wheelchair handle as if she owned it. The storm outside cracked with lightning. Daniel stepped closer and said, "From tonight, Lila sits at the head of the table. You will eat in your room." Emily's throat tightened. Before she could speak, Daniel waved to security. "Clear the chair space for Lila," he ordered. A guard began to roll Emily back. Her bracelet, simple silver, a gift from their early days, touched the table edge and made a tiny ring, a small cry from a tiny bell. No one moved to help her. Not even Daniel. Then came a sound the whole house heard, the click of a brake letting go. Lila's fingers had touched something at the back of the chair. The wheelchair rolled. The polished marble floor of the foyer gleamed like water. At the end of the foyer was a short set of steps down to the hallway. The chair began to pick up speed. Emily's eyes widened. Lila's smile did not move. The guard shouted, "Stop the chair." The storm boomed again. The wheels met the edge. The world tilted. And we hold our breath. Hours earlier, before the rain, before the names, before the rolling chair, this was a love story that tasted like fresh bread. When Daniel and Emily first met, they were young and hopeful. He had a small building shop with bent ladders, cracked paint tins, and big dreams. She was a trained nurse with a soft laugh and gentle hands. They stood in a small clinic waiting room with plastic chairs and a flickering fan. Daniel had come to treat a deep cut on his palm. Emily cleaned the wound and wrapped it with care. She spoke to him like a friend. He looked at her and saw a clear sky after a hard day. That night, under a quiet streetlight, he told her he wanted to build homes that made people feel safe. She told him she wanted to care for people long after they left the hospital. They married in a simple church with white benches and singing children. Money was tight. Emily sold homemade snacks after her shifts. Daniel took night jobs fixing walls and roofs. When his knees ached, she rubbed medicine into them. When her eyes stung from long hours, he brewed ginger tea and fanned her. They saved together. They prayed together. They failed sometimes and laughed about it later. When his first big customer refused to pay, it was Emily who had the idea to start a small building class on weekends. She printed flyers by hand and handed them out with biscuits. Slowly, one class became 2 and 2 became 5, and soon Daniel's name floated in the city like a kite in clean wind. They moved into a larger house with tall windows and a garden that smelled like mango and wet earth. People called them the couple that never gave up. Emily shifted from hospital work to a home care program that visited old people and new mothers. "Kindness is a seed," she told Daniel. "If we plant it everywhere, one day the city will be a forest of care." Daniel kissed her forehead and said, "And I will build paths through that forest." Then came the day that split their lives into before and after. Emily was coming home in a taxi when a delivery truck skidded on pooled water by the market. The sound was like a heavy door slamming. The taxi spun. A basket of oranges burst and rolled like suns across the road. Emily felt a hard shock travel up her spine, then a silence that ate all other sounds. When she woke in the hospital, white light washed the ceiling and pain gripped her like a fist. The doctors spoke softly. They said there was damage to her spine. They said walking might not be possible for a while, maybe longer. Emily blinked away tears. She held Daniel's hand. His mouth tried to be brave, but his eyes shouted. He promised he would be there every step, every day. At first he kept his promise. He brought flowers. He fed her soup. He paid for the best therapy. He even made jokes when the braces squeezed her ribs. But when the days turned to weeks and the weeks walked toward months, the fear that Daniel hid began to grow. The busy business world pulled him like a river. Clients wanted him on time. Meetings stretched late. The hushed gossip of friends and strangers came in little bites. Strong men need strong partners. A builder cannot carry 2 weights. He is still young. Each word made a small cut in him. Emily saw the tiredness on his face and tried to make him laugh. She learned to wheel herself in tiny circles by the window. She kept a notebook where she wrote little wins, sat up for 10 minutes today, touched my toes, did not cry for 2 hours. She smiled when he entered, even when her back burned like hot coal. She asked him about roofing prices and cement mixes so he would feel normal again. She told him, kindness is still the seed, and he nodded but did not look at her long. That was when Lila came. She was hired as a maid to help with cleaning, cooking and moving light things. She was young with quick hands and a sharp mind. At first she was quiet. She learned the house. She learned the staff. She brought Emily tea and sat by her during slow afternoons. Emily told her stories about the early days. Lila listened with eyes that did not blink much. Soon Lila carried small messages to Daniel. Sir, the boardroom chairs have arrived. Sir, your blue tie is on the table. Sir, the client is waiting. She always stood a little closer than needed. Daniel was tired and hungry for lightness. Lila's words came like soft bread. She called him brilliant. She laughed at every joke even when it was not funny. She told him he was strong. He began to stand taller when she entered the room. One morning, Emily heard Lila practicing Daniel's signature in the kitchen with a finger and spilled sugar on the counter. It should have meant nothing, just a silly habit, but something cold walked across Emily's skin. She wheeled in and said, "That's not your name to trace." Lila smiled. "I like pretty letters," she said. "Pretty letters belong to pretty promises." Emily did not understand, but she felt a little tremble in her hands. Days turned into a string of small hurts. Lila moved Emily's framed wedding photo from the hallway to a shelf inside the laundry room. "Less clutter," Lila said. She changed the dining room flowers from Emily's favorite lilies to red roses. "Roses look rich," she said. She told the driver not to pick up Emily's therapist because the schedule was now too tight. Daniel, tired and busy, did not correct anything. The house slowly bent away from the woman who built it. Still, Emily kept trying. She asked the cook to teach her new soup recipes she could mix from the chair. She called old patients to check on their babies and grandmas. She started a tiny kindness circle with 2 neighbors and a fruit seller who often waved by the gate. They wrote each other notes. "You are brave, you are not alone, today will be gentle." She wrote one for Daniel too and asked Lila to place it in his briefcase. "When your shoulders hurt, let my love hold them." That night he came home late and left the note on the table, unopened. The less extreme moments still carried warm smells. Smoke from afternoon rain, soft radio songs in the kitchen, laughter from the gate as the guards told old jokes. But the highs that now came were harsh highs, sharp, sudden, and cutting. One evening, a client dinner ran long and Daniel returned with a gold watch and new plans for a bigger office. He did not see the wheelchair tracks on the floor where Emily had tried to surprise him with a little banner that said, "We believe in you." Lila saw it, folded it, and dropped it in the bin. Another day, Emily rolled onto the patio to feel the sun. She watched small yellow birds bounce on the fence line. Lila came out with 2 glasses of cold juice and set both by Daniel's chair, not giving one to Emily. When Daniel arrived, he drank 1 glass quickly. Emily said lightly, "Juice thief," hoping to make them smile. Lila's face changed. "Maybe juice is for people who burn energy," she said softly. Daniel did not say anything. He looked away and a cloud seemed to pass between them. "Kindness is a seed," Emily kept telling herself. "If I keep planting, it will grow again." Then the day of the storm arrived. It began with dark clouds gathering over the city like a heavy blanket. Workers moved fast to close the windows of the upstairs rooms. The house smelled like wet stone. Daniel had just signed a deal that would give him a large new project. He came home full of noise and pride. Lila met him at the door with a towel for his shoulders. "Boss," she said, a word she did not used to use. She helped him out of his wet jacket and hung it by the stairs. Emily waited in the dining room with a round cake she had decorated herself. She had practiced all morning to pipe white cream letters that said, "Congratulations, Daniel." The cake leaned a little, but it leaned with love. When Daniel entered, he glanced at the cake and then at the chairs. Lila was already pulling one at the head of the table. "Boss must sit high tonight," she said. Daniel smiled. Emily's heart dipped, but she steadied it. "Please sit," she said. "I baked for you." Daniel sat, but not at the head. He sat where Lila had placed his napkin. Emily wheeled herself closer. The rain began tapping, then drumming. The guards shut the main doors. Dinner started with hot soup and soft bread. The kitchen staff moved with quiet grace. Emily told a small story about the time a grandmother in her care learned to use a phone to see her grandchild. She hoped the story would soften the hard places inside Daniel. Halfway through, Lila leaned to whisper in Daniel's ear and they both laughed. Emily swallowed her next sentence. The laughter fell like a stone in her bowl. Then, like a match on dry paper, something small turned into a blaze. Emily tried to lift the cake server. Her wrist shook. The server slipped and tapped the cake, smudging one letter. Congratulations, it now read. Lila clicked her tongue. Even cake is tired of waiting, she said with a tiny laugh. Daniel, already hot with new power, looked at the crooked word and exploded. Everything is harder because of you, he said. Even a cake cannot stand. The room froze. The rain pounded. Lila moved behind Emily's chair, fingers resting on the handle like a claim. Daniel's words poured out like dirty water. He said he needed speed and sharpness, not slow and sorry. He said he was tired of pushing a mountain up a hill. He said the maid understood the life he wanted, the rhythm he now moved in. Lila stood a little taller. The house staff looked away as if the room were too bright to face. Emily felt her heart crack but would not let it break. Daniel, she said, voice steady, we built this together. You stood on my shoulders when they were strong. You can lean on mine now that they are not. Daniel's jaw tightened. I am done leaning, he said. From tonight, Lila sits at the head of the table. You will eat in your room. A small no formed on Emily's lips, not loud but full. The driver in the hall took a step forward and then stopped when Daniel's eyes flashed. Lila's hand shifted. The soft click of a wheel brake releasing cut through the thunder. The chair moved. At first it was slow. A gentle roll as if the house itself sighed. Then the smooth marble floor became a river and the chair was a little boat. Emily's fingers grasped the armrests. A guard shouted. The cook covered her mouth. Daniel's eyes widened, shock beating back his anger for a heartbeat. The chair glided toward the foyer steps, 3 steps but high enough to bite. Lila, someone yelled. Hold it. But Lila's face was frozen in surprise, or was it? And her hands were not on the handles now. The wheels kissed the first step. Emily felt the world tip as if the house turned on its side. A flash of the silver bracelet. The tiniest ring of metal on stone. The breath of everyone in the room pulled into one tight knot. The front door flew open with a blast of wind, rain spraying the foyer like needles. A shadow filled the doorway, someone tall under a dripping coat, a figure that should not be here at this hour. The thunder shouted again and a voice cried, Stop that chair. The wheels lifted. The room tilted further. Time slowed, holding everyone on a thin thread between disaster and mercy. And then, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. If you're feeling the story, please like, subscribe and share. Your support keeps these stories coming. The chair lifted off the first step, wheels spinning in the air like frightened eyes. Rain blew into the foyer. A tall figure in a soaked coat lunged forward. Strong hands grabbed the wheelchair handles and yanked back hard. Emily's body jolted. The front wheels slammed down on the marble with a loud clap. The chair stopped one breath before the drop. The thunder rolled away like a big drum. Easy, the voice said, calm but shaking. The man pushed the chair back from the steps and set the brake. Water dripped from his coat to the floor. He pulled back his hood. It was Logan, Emily's physical therapist. He held a thin blue notebook pressed to his chest. You dropped this in the driveway yesterday, he said, breathless. Your kindness notes. For a long second no one moved. The staff froze like statues. Lila's face was smooth, too smooth, as if she was wearing a mask. Daniel stared at Logan, then at the wheelchair, then at the steps. His anger fell quiet and hid somewhere behind his eyes. Logan crouched in front of Emily so his eyes were level with hers. You okay? He asked, voice gentle. Emily nodded slowly, air returning to her lungs in pieces. Thank you, she whispered. Her hands shook. She couldn't stop them. Logan put the blue notebook on her lap and covered her hands with one of his. Breathe in, he said softly, and out. The cook, Rosa, rushed forward with towels. Mike, the guard, closed the front door to keep the storm out. The house, which had felt like a battlefield a moment ago, started to become a home again, just for a moment. The cake on the dining table leaned quietly like it was listening too. Logan stood and faced the room. He had the calm look of someone who had worked in busy hospitals. I rang the bell, he said, to no one in particular. No one answered. The door was open. I heard shouting. I ran in. He glanced at the steps and then at Lila's hands on her sides. He said nothing more. Daniel cleared his throat. We're fine, he said quickly, as if saying it made it true. He tried to put the strong boss look back on his face, but it did not sit right. Thank you for your quick reaction. Lila stepped closer with soft eyes and a small, careful smile. It rolled, she said. I tried to stop it. The words were clean. They did not touch the tiny click of the brake that everyone had heard. Emily felt the blue notebook under her fingers. On the top page, in her own shaky handwriting, were 3 small sentences. You are not alone. You are loved. You are braver than yesterday. She took a deep breath. I would like to sit by the window, she said quietly to no one and everyone. Logan nodded and began to push her chair, slow and steady, back into the dining room away from the steps. The storm was now a steady hiss outside. Rosa placed a towel on Emily's lap and wiped the raindrops from her hair. The house staff, who had been invisible all night, moved with care again. Glasses gathered, napkins folded, soup bowls carried back to the kitchen. Life tried to walk back to normal. Daniel stayed near the head of the table. He looked at the cake and then away. His hands opened and closed at his sides. Lila stood 2 steps away from him, as if she were a shadow that wanted to be a person. She looked at Logan with a soft curiosity that carried the sharp point of a pin. Thank you for helping, she said. Logan nodded once. He did not smile. The heat in the room lowered. The noise of the storm softened. The air was a little kinder. Can I make tea? Emily asked Rosa. Something warm. Of course, Rosa said. Ginger? Emily nodded. Rosa's smile was small but true. She disappeared into the kitchen with quick steps. Logan pulled a chair beside Emily and sat in a way that said he would leave when asked. Do your hands hurt? He asked. Do you feel dizzy? Emily shook her head. Just scared, she said, truth simple and clear. Logan nodded. Scared is honest, he answered. Honest helps us heal. Daniel heard them and looked over. For a second, something like the old Daniel showed on his face, the man who used to brew ginger tea and fan her at midnight. Then his eyes shifted to Lila and the old look went back into hiding. The less extreme moment came like a soft blanket. Rosa brought tea. The steam rose in slow ribbons. Mike carried more towels in case anyone was still wet. The staff whispered kindly to each other, Are you okay? Careful with the tray. The house felt warm again even with the storm outside. Emily opened her blue notebook. She turned the page and wrote with slow care, I am here. I'm loved. I am braver than yesterday. She tore the page gently and folded it. Daniel, she said, holding it out, her voice steady. For your pocket. He looked at the note. His jaw worked like he was chewing on his own pride. For a breath he almost took it. Then Lila stepped closer and placed her hand on his arm. Boss, she said softly, your call is in 5 minutes. The moment snapped. Daniel cleared his throat and straightened his shoulders. Put it on my desk, he told Rosa instead, not looking at Emily. Rosa took the note, eyes sad and nodded. Logan stood. I'll check your brace, he said to Emily, keeping his voice low. Quick look. Make sure you're safe. He asked permission with his eyes. Emily nodded. He checked straps, asked if any place felt sore, and showed her a tiny breathing exercise to calm the trembling in her fingers. You are not made of glass, he said. But we will treat you gently anyway. Thank you, Emily said. The words were warm in her mouth. Lila moved toward the kitchen as if to help. She paused by the dining chair at the head of the table. Her hand rested there just a second too long, like a claim. When she saw Logan watching, she gave him that small careful smile again and kept walking. The storm outside pulled away little by little. The thunder was far now, like someone rolling barrels down a distant street. The house lights flickered once, then steadied. Power's touchy, Mike said to no one, checking a window latch. We're okay, Logan replied, still half beside Emily, half watching the room. Daniel pulled out his phone and walked to the study door. I have a call, he said softly. His voice was not sharp now. He was tired. He looked at Emily, then looked away. He disappeared into the study. Emily stared at the cake with the broken word. She reached for the server again. Her wrist still shook but less now. Logan watched her and did not help unless asked. I want to cut just one slice, she said. Even if the word is wrong, the love is right. Then that is enough, Logan answered. She cut a thin slice and placed it on a small plate. She nodded to Rosa. For the guards, she said. They stand in the rain for us. Rosa's smile came back a little bigger. Yes, ma'am. Kindness is a seed, Emily told herself. Plant one even in a storm. The house breathed. The heat of the fight cooled into quiet air. It felt like the danger had passed. But it had not. A sharp smell slid into the room. It was small at first, like a burnt match. Logan's nose twitched. He turned his head. The smell grew. Rosa's eyes widened. She looked toward the kitchen. No, she whispered, almost to herself. I turned the stove to low. The house lights flickered again and then went out in a quick dark blink. A hum stopped somewhere, maybe the fridge. Mike at the window swore under his breath. Power's out. From the kitchen, a soft pop sounded, then another. The burnt smell turned thick. Smoke curled into the dining room like a gray ribbon. Rosa placed the cake plate down and ran. "Stay here," she called behind her. "I'll check." "Mike," Logan shouted, already moving, "fire extinguisher." "On it." Mike ran to the hall closet. Emily's heart sped up. Her hands shook again. She saw the kitchen doorway. The smoke grew darker, thicker, faster than it should have. Another pop. Then an orange tongue of flame licked the top of the doorway and pulled back like a cat. "Everyone out." Logan called to the staff. "Please move outside to the side yard, not the front. Storm is heavy." Feet began to shuffle. Chairs scraped. Someone coughed. "Daniel?" Emily cried, voice cracking. He was still in the study with the door closed. She tried to wheel forward, but the power loss had made the house feel different. The floor seemed to tilt with her fear. The smoke pushed low and mean into the dining room, biting her throat. "Logan," she called, but he was already a dark shape in the doorway of the kitchen, one hand on the frame, the other waving Mike toward him. Rosa coughed hard, backing out with red eyes. "Oil?" she gasped. "Pan oil." When the power flickered. "Oh God." Mike squeezed the extinguisher handle. White foam burst and hissed, but the flame had already found a line of oil on the stove and leaped to a hanging towel. Fire climbed quick, greedy and bright. "Windows!" Logan shouted. "Rosa out." Mike's short bursts. Emily tried to turn her chair toward the study to warn Daniel, but her right wheel slid on a patch of water from the storm, and the chair stuck against the side of the table. She tried again. The wheel spun and squeaked. The smoke crawled into her lungs and made her cough. Her eyes screamed. She blinked tears and saw everything through watery glass. Lila appeared from the hallway, a silhouette against the gray. "This way," she called, but her voice sounded wrong, thin and slow. She stepped in front of Emily and then past her, toward the back hallway door that led to the service yard. She reached for the knob and then paused, hand on the lock. She looked back at Emily for one long second, lips parting just a little. In the low light, her eyes were dark lakes. Then she turned the lock with a soft click. Emily jerked. "Open it," she coughed. "Open the door." Lila's hand stayed on the knob. Her face was calm, a calm that felt like ice. "Door's stuck," she said, voice smooth. She wiggled it once, twice. It did not open. She didn't look surprised. Logan looked back from the kitchen, face streaked with ash. He saw Emily stuck, the door that would not open, and Lila's still hand on the knob. His eyes hardened. "Lila, open that door," he said, no softness now. "I'm trying," she answered, but her wrist did not truly turn. Another flame reached the kitchen ceiling and crawled along it like a hungry finger. The smoke moved faster, darker, lower. Rosa pulled her apron over her mouth and stumbled out a side door with two other staff, coughing. Mike's extinguisher sputtered empty. "Need another?" he shouted. Emily reached for her wheel again. It squeaked and slid. She felt small, like a bird in a box. "Daniel?" she cried again, voice thin. "Daniel?" The study door opened. Daniel stepped out, phone in hand, eyes frowning at the smoke like it was a rude guest. "What is?" he began. Then he saw the fire and his face changed to fear. He slipped the phone into his pocket and ran toward Emily. "Back door." Logan shouted again, pointing, moving between the kitchen and the dining room. "Get her out." Daniel grabbed Emily's chair and yanked, but the right wheel was still stuck on the wet patch and the chair hit the table leg. The cake plate slid and fell, the slice of cake landing upside down on the floor. For a strange second, Emily stared at the broken frosting and thought, even cake wants to live. Daniel pulled again. The chair moved an inch. The smoke clawed at their throats. Emily coughed and coughed. Her eyes streamed. The room was a messy painting of orange and gray. "Door, Lila." Daniel shouted, voice hoarse. Lila did not move at first. Then she stepped aside slowly as if waking from a dream and tried the lock again. This time the door opened a small crack, too small for the chair. "It's jammed," she said. "Old wood." Her voice was still that smooth calm that did not belong in a fire. Logan ran over with a strong, fast step. He planted his shoulder against the door and shoved. The door groaned and opened wider, enough for the chair to pass. Fresh air rushed in, cool and wet with rain. Tasted like life. "Go." Logan barked. Daniel pushed the chair. The right wheel caught again. He grunted. "Help me," he said to Lila. She hesitated only a heartbeat, then took the other handle. Together they rolled Emily toward the open door. The rain outside hissed and the sky flashed. The fire behind them crackled and spat, angry that its meal was leaving. They reached the threshold. Logan held the door wide with one hand and shielded Emily's head with the other as Daniel and Lila bumped the chair over the small step. Cool rain hit Emily's face. She gasped. The air was clean. Rosa grabbed the chair from outside and pulled them fully into the service yard. The staff huddled under a small overhang, coughing and wide-eyed. Mike ran past them back inside with a second extinguisher. For a heartbeat, it felt like the danger was done. Then a new sound cut the air, sharp, wrong, and big. It was the alarm from the garage, a screaming beep 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 that only meant one thing in this house: carbon monoxide or fuel. Logan's head snapped toward the garage door on the other side of the yard. Smoke, thinner but fast, pushed from the edges of its frame. "No," he said softly. "No, no." Rosa covered her mouth. "The generator," she whispered. "We switched to backup when the power went out." "What about the fuel cans?" Mike shouted from inside as if he heard her through the noise. Daniel's face drained. "I moved them in earlier," he said. "Storm didn't want them outside." He looked at the garage door, then at Emily, then at the house where the fire still hissed, then back at the garage. His mouth opened and closed. For the first time all night, he did not look like a boss or a builder. He looked like a man who was very afraid. The alarm wailed louder. A deep thump sounded from the garage, like a giant closing a fist. The ground under their feet gave a tiny shiver. A thin line of fire slid under the garage door like a snake's tongue and then went out, then came back again brighter. "Everyone to the far gate," Logan shouted, pointing to the back exit that opened to the side street. "Now." He turned to Daniel. "Call 911. Right now." Daniel fumbled his phone out with shaking hands. Rain hammered the yard roof. The alarm screamed. Emily clutched the blue notebook to her chest. Her eyes found Lila's face. In the flashing storm light, Lila was not afraid. She was watching. Watching the garage door. Watching Daniel. Watching the fire like it was telling her a story only she could hear. The garage door rattled once, twice. The alarm climbed into a higher, meaner sound. Something deep inside the garage hissed like a snake in a metal box. Then the whole door bowed outward for a split second, as if a giant had pressed its palm from the inside. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. If this story has you hooked, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us keep telling these tales. Made her heart twist again. Daniel collapsed near the yard wall, gasping for breath, but his arms never let go of the fireproof box. He clutched it tighter than he had ever held Emily's hand. Even in the middle of chaos, his treasure wasn't his wife, it was paper. Emily's eyes filled with new tears, not from smoke, not from fear, but from pain. "I risked my life for him. I stood by him through every storm. And now, when fire tests him, he chooses contracts over me." Lila stepped from the shadows of the rain, her face strangely calm, almost satisfied. She knelt beside Daniel and wiped soot from his forehead with her hand. "Boss," she said softly, "you saved the future. That's strength." Her words cut Emily like a knife. She wanted to scream, but no sound came. The fire raged louder, swallowing the garage roof. Sparks shot into the sky like fireworks. The neighbors shouted for everyone to move back. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing louder. Emily's eyes locked on Daniel, who leaned heavily on Lila's shoulder, still clutching the box. He hadn't even looked at her since he came out of the flames. Not once. And in that moment, a chilling thought entered Emily's heart. Maybe the man I loved has already burned away inside, and what's left is only ashes clinging to a box. The rain fell harder, sirens grew nearer, but inside her chest, a storm far greater was breaking loose. Then crash. The garage roof collapsed in a fiery explosion, sending a wave of heat across the yard. Everyone screamed and ducked. Sparks rained down like angry stars. The neighbors pulled back, dragging children with them. Rosa pushed Emily's chair further from the fire, her arms shaking. But just as the flames roared louder, Emily noticed something chilling. Lila wasn't afraid. She wasn't shielding herself like the others. She was watching the inferno with a strange satisfaction, her lips curled in the faintest smile. Why was she smiling? Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. If this story has you hooked, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so more people can join the journey. The fire department trucks finally roared into the compound, sirens screaming, red lights flashing across the rain-soaked walls. Firefighters in yellow suits jumped out, dragging hoses like snakes across the ground. They shouted commands, water burst forward, and within minutes heavy streams pounded the flames. Steam hissed and rose into the stormy night, mixing with the smoke. The air smelled of burnt wood oil and wet ash. Neighbors clapped and prayed aloud as the fire shrank under the force of the water. Emily sat in her wheelchair, trembling but safe under the umbrella of the boy who had refused to leave her side. Rosa rubbed her shoulders, whispering soft prayers. Daniel leaned against the wall, still coughing, his arms stubbornly wrapped around the fireproof box. His eyes were bloodshot, his suit ruined, but he never let the box out of his grip. "It's all here," he muttered. "All my work. All my future." Emily's throat tightened. "Not our future," she thought bitterly. "Mine is not in that box anymore." Then her eyes drifted to Lila. The young maid stood nearby, arms folded across her chest, rain running down her face. She wasn't looking at Daniel now. She was staring at the collapsing garage, her lips curved in the faintest smile. It wasn't relief. It wasn't gratitude. It was something darker. Emily's heart skipped. Why is she smiling at destruction? The less extreme moment came as firefighters declared the fire contained. The house was damaged but standing. The garage was gone, blackened to its bones. Neighbors slowly drifted home, shaking their heads, whispering gossip. Rosa guided Emily back under the side awning, away from the chaos, and handed her a cup of warm water. Logan crouched beside her. His face was smudged with soot, his eyes tired but alert. "You okay?" he asked again, his voice low. Emily nodded weakly. "Thanks to you," she whispered. "You saved me twice tonight." Logan gave her a small smile, then leaned closer. "But something isn't right here," he murmured, his eyes darting toward Lila. "I saw her hand on that door. She could have opened it sooner. She didn't." Emily swallowed hard. She had heard the same suspicion in her own heart. But before she could answer, Daniel's voice cut the moment. "We're not going to waste time blaming anyone," he said, standing under the awning, still clutching his box. "The fire was an accident. Power failure. Oil on the stove. That's it." His tone was sharp, final. He looked at Logan. "Thank you for your help, but this is family business now." Logan straightened slowly. His eyes narrowed but he said nothing. He just patted Emily's hand once before standing. That was when the new extreme moment hit like lightning out of nowhere. Two firefighters walked over to Daniel, their helmets dripping water. "Sir," one of them said, "we need you to know something. That fire didn't start from the stove alone." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" The firefighter held up a blackened metal can, charred but still recognizable. "We found this inside the garage, traces of accelerant. Someone poured fuel before the fire spread. This wasn't just an accident. It was set." Gasps filled the yard. Rosa dropped the cup in her hand, the water spilling across Emily's lap. Logan froze. Emily's stomach twisted. Her eyes flicked immediately to Lila. Lila's calm face didn't crack. She didn't gasp. She didn't frown. She simply tilted her head slightly, as though she had been expecting those very words. Daniel's jaw dropped. "That's impossible," he snapped. "Who would burn my house? Who would risk my family's life?" His voice shook with more fear than anger. Emily's heart pounded as the firefighter continued, "We'll investigate. But sir, someone in this compound wanted this fire to happen." The rain kept falling, the garage smoldered, and in the faint glow of the firefighters' flashlights Lila's eyes glistened, not with fear but with something colder. And Emily knew at that moment, the danger wasn't over. The fire was just the beginning. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. If this story has you hooked, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Your support helps us keep going. The firefighters' words hung in the air like heavy smoke. Someone in this compound wanted this fire to happen. Silence followed, broken only by the steady hiss of water as the last flames died out. Everyone turned to look at each other, the guards, the cooks, the staff. Suspicion rolled through the yard like a dark wind. Emily gripped her blue notebook tightly. Her chest felt heavy. Daniel barked, "That's nonsense. My people are loyal. They've been here for years." But his voice wavered, and his eyes darted around nervously. Logan crossed his arms, his soot-stained shirt clinging to his body. His voice was calm but sharp. "If they are loyal, then why didn't anyone stop the fire before it spread? Why was Emily's wheelchair nearly rolled down the steps? Too many accidents tonight." His eyes lingered on Lila. Lila stepped forward slowly, her wet maid uniform clinging to her slender frame. Her face was expressionless, her voice soft and respectful. "Sir," she said to Daniel, "you know I would never harm this family. I'm the one who stood by you while others ran." She lowered her gaze, letting her words sink like honey into Daniel's ears. Daniel softened almost instantly. "That's enough," he snapped at Logan. "She saved me tonight. She helped me out of the fire. Don't accuse her." He rested one hand on Lila's shoulder as if sealing his trust. Emily's heart cracked again. He can't even see her mask, she thought. He's blind and I am invisible. The less extreme moment came as the firefighters packed up their hoses and left, promising to return in the morning to investigate. The neighbors trickled back to their homes, whispering loudly about the fire, about Daniel, about the strange maid who never flinched. Rosa wheeled Emily back inside. The dining room smelled of smoke, but the staff had tried to clean. The cake still lay upside down on the floor, forgotten. Emily stared at it for a long time, her tears rolling silently. Even the cake fell because no one was there to catch it, she thought. Logan crouched beside her again. His voice was gentle, but his words were serious. "Emily, you need to be careful. Someone doesn't want you safe in this house. That break didn't release on its own. And this fire wasn't just bad luck. Watch everyone, especially the ones closest to Daniel." Emily's hand trembled as she clutched the notebook. "What can I do?" she whispered. "Stay strong," Logan said. "Stay observant. And remember, you are not weak. You see things others ignore." He gave her a reassuring nod and left quietly into the storm. But peace did not last long. The new extreme event arrived like a knife in the dark. Later that night, long after the firefighters left and the storm calmed, Emily sat awake in her room, staring at the ceiling. She heard footsteps outside her door, soft, careful, like someone who didn't want to be heard. The handle of her door turned slowly. The door creaked open. A shadow slipped inside. Emily froze, her heart hammering. The figure stepped closer, and in the dim moonlight filtering through the curtains, she saw it was Lila. The maid moved silently to her bedside, her eyes sharp and cold, so different from the sweet mask she wore in front of Daniel. She leaned down until her lips were close to Emily's ear. "You should have fallen tonight," Lila whispered. Her voice was calm, chilling. "Next time no one will catch you." Emily's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to scream, but her voice was trapped inside her chest. Lila straightened, her expression blank again, and slipped out of the room as quietly as she came. The door clicked shut. Emily was left trembling in the darkness, her blue notebook clutched against her chest. Now she knew the truth. The danger wasn't only the fire or the storm or Daniel's neglect. The danger slept under the same roof, wearing a maid's uniform and a smile that wasn't real. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. If this story gripped you, please like, subscribe and share. Your support keeps these stories alive. Emily didn't sleep that night. Every time her eyes drifted shut, she saw Lila's shadow at her bedside, whispering that cruel promise. "Next time no one will catch you." Her body trembled, not only from fear but from anger. She had been Daniel's partner, his strength in his weakest days. Now she was treated as a burden while danger walked freely in her home. She turned on her small bedside lamp and opened her blue notebook. Her hands shook as she wrote slowly, "I am not weak. I am not invisible. I will survive this storm." The words steadied her breathing. The morning came with a false calm. Sunlight streamed into the smoky ruins of the garage, and birds chirped as if the night's terror had never happened. The staff moved about quietly, sweeping ash and scrubbing soot. Daniel left early for a meeting, carrying his fireproof box under his arm like it was a newborn child. He barely glanced at Emily as he left. "Rest, Emily," he said flatly. "Don't stress. Lila will handle things here." Those words burned more than the smoke. Lila will handle things. The woman who wanted her gone now ruled the house in daylight too. But Emily wasn't going to be silent anymore. The less extreme moment came mid-morning when Logan returned, not in his therapist's uniform but in plain clothes. He carried a bag of medical supplies and a newspaper tucked under his arm. He checked her brace, massaged her stiff hands and gave her exercises. But his eyes kept drifting around the room as if searching for hidden shadows. Finally he leaned closer. "Emily, last night wasn't random," he whispered. "I spoke to one of the firefighters this morning. They found traces of kerosene near the stairs too, close to where your wheelchair rolled. Someone was preparing for more than just a kitchen fire." Emily's breath caught. So the fall, the fire, they were connected? Logan nodded grimly. "Someone wants you hurt, maybe even gone. And Daniel, he's too blinded to see it." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away. "Then I must protect myself," she said firmly. "But how?" Logan pulled the newspaper from under his arm and slid it to her lap. "Read this." The headline made her chest tighten. Mysterious fire destroys business tycoon's garage, police suspect foul play. Daniel's name was bold across the page. Beneath it, another article caught her eye. A story about a charity foundation for women with spinal injuries, fighting for dignity and safety in homes where they were neglected. Emily's hands shook as she read. Something inside her sparked to life, like a candle in a dark cave. "Emily," Logan said softly, "you're not just a victim. You're still the woman who built Daniel's empire with her strength. You can build again, but this time for yourself." Her heart steadied. Yes, she thought. I may be in this chair, but I'm not powerless. That night, Emily began her first bold step. She asked Rosa to bring her phone secretly, not the one Daniel monitored, but an old spare she kept hidden. With trembling fingers, she searched the charity's number from the article and dialed. A warm female voice answered, "This is Grace Foundation. How can we help you today?" Emily swallowed hard. "My name is Emily," she whispered. "I think I'm in danger. My husband, he has turned away from me. And the maid in my home, she wants me gone. I survived a fire last night. Please, I need guidance." The voice on the other end was calm and strong. "Emily, you are not alone. We will help you. Tell us everything step by step." Tears ran down her cheeks as Emily spoke. For the first time in months, someone listened without judgment, without seeing her as a burden. They promised to send a counselor to meet her discreetly. But even as hope flickered inside her, the new extreme moment arrived. As she ended the call and placed the phone under her blanket, the door creaked open. Lila stepped inside silently, carrying a tray of tea. Her eyes scanned the room like a hawk. Emily's heart raced. Did she hear? Did she see? Lila set the tray down and smiled her usual soft smile. "I thought you might be thirsty," she said sweetly. But as she poured the tea, her lips curved into a whisper only Emily could hear. "You can call for help all you want, but no one will save you when the time comes." The tea steamed, but Emily's blood ran cold. "Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. If this story has your heart racing, please like, subscribe and share." Emily barely touched the tea Lila poured. She watched the steam curl up like ghostly fingers, her instincts screaming not to drink it. When Lila finally left the room, closing the door softly behind her, Emily exhaled the breath she had been holding. She pushed the cup away, her mind racing. "She's tightening the noose around me. But she doesn't know, I'm already planning to fight back." Her blue notebook lay open on her lap. With shaky hands she wrote in big letters, "Kindness is my seed, but courage is my root. I will not fall." The next morning, Daniel called a household meeting. Everyone gathered in the smoky dining room, the guards, the cooks, Rosa, and of course Lila standing close by his side. Emily wheeled herself in slowly, watching carefully. Daniel cleared his throat, his voice booming. "The fire last night has made me realize something. This house needs order. Discipline." He glanced at Emily briefly before focusing on the staff. "From today, Lila will oversee household operations. All staff will answer to her directly. She has proven herself capable." The words fell like a hammer. Rosa gasped softly. One of the guards shifted uncomfortably. Emily's chest tightened. "So it's official. He's given her power right in front of me." Lila bowed her head modestly. "Thank you, sir," she said softly, but when her eyes flicked toward Emily, they gleamed with quiet triumph. The less extreme moment came afterward, when Rosa wheeled Emily to her room. Rosa bent close and whispered, "Ma'am, I don't trust her. She's too hungry for control. I've seen the way she watches you." Her hands trembled. "If you need anything, I'll be your eyes." Emily's eyes watered. She grabbed Rosa's hand. "Thank you. You're the only one I can count on now." But the day moved on, and the air grew heavier with Lila's presence. She strutted through the mansion, issuing small commands, rearranging furniture, correcting staff in front of each other. She even replaced the flowers in Emily's room with red roses again, knowing they weren't her favorite. Each act was a quiet stab. By late evening, Emily was exhausted. She wheeled herself to the patio to breathe fresh air. The sunset was streaked with gold and purple, beautiful but sad. She clutched her notebook to her chest and whispered to herself, "Stay strong. Stay awake." Then came the extreme moment. As the sky darkened, Emily wheeled herself back inside. The house was quiet. Too quiet. She turned toward her bedroom, but something was wrong. The floor was slick, wet but not from rain. She leaned forward, sniffing. Her heart stopped. It wasn't water. It was oil. A thin trail of it stretched from the kitchen to her bedroom door. Before she could react, she heard the faint scrape of a match behind her. She twisted in her chair, and there stood Lila in the hallway, a small box of matches in her hand, her smile calm and steady. Emily's throat tightened. "Why?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Lila tilted her head, her eyes cold. "Because you're in the way. Daniel doesn't need a broken wife holding him back. He needs me. And soon this house will belong to us both." She struck the match, the tiny flame flaring to life, its reflection dancing in her dark eyes. Emily's heart pounded. She tried to wheel backward, but her wheels slipped on the oil. She was trapped. The match burned brighter in Lila's fingers. And then, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. If this story has you on edge, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. The flame from Lila's match hissed in the still air, small but terrifying. Emily's heart raced so hard she thought her chest might burst. Her wheelchair wheels spun helplessly in the slick oil. She was cornered. Lila's lips curled into a chilling smile. One flick, and everything you are will vanish. Daniel will have no reason to keep holding on to you. Her voice was calm, almost sweet, but every word cut like glass. Emily gripped her notebook so tightly it bent in her trembling hands. This can't be the end, she thought. I won't let her write my story. At that exact moment, heavy footsteps thundered down the hallway. "Emily!" Logan's voice rang out. He appeared at the far end, his face hardening when he saw the oil, the flame, and Lila's poised hand. "Drop it," he barked. His voice was sharp, commanding, nothing like the calm therapist she knew. "Now." Lila's eyes flicked to him, unfazed. "Stay out of this," she hissed. "This isn't your fight." Logan stepped closer, his eyes locked on hers. "You're right. It's not my fight. It's Emily's life. And I won't stand here while you steal it." For the first time, Lila's hand trembled slightly. The matchstick flickered, threatening to die. Emily seized the moment. With all the strength left in her, she wheeled forward hard, the chair jolting across the oil, splashing it wide. The sudden movement startled Lila, and she instinctively jerked back. The match slipped from her fingers. Emily screamed. Logan lunged. His foot stomped the flame into the oil before it could spread. The hallway filled with the smell of burnt sulfur, but no fire rose. For a second, silence fell. Then Logan grabbed Lila's wrist, his grip iron. "You tried to kill her," he growled. "And now everyone will know." But Lila, sly as ever, smirked. "Who will believe you? Daniel trusts me. To him, I'm the only one who cares." Emily's voice, though shaky, broke the silence. "Not anymore." The less extreme moment followed. Rosa, who had heard the commotion, rushed in. She froze at the sight, oil on the floor, Logan gripping Lila, and Emily pale but unbroken. "Dear God," she whispered. "Call the police," Logan ordered. Rosa nodded, fumbling for her phone. But Lila wasn't finished. She twisted violently, slipping free from Logan's hold with surprising strength. Her eyes burned with fury. "You'll regret this," she spat. "Both of you." She darted down the hallway before Logan could catch her, disappearing into the shadows of the mansion. Emily trembled in her chair. "She'll come back," she whispered. "I know she will." Logan crouched in front of her, steadying her shaking hands. "Then we'll be ready," he said firmly. "You're not alone anymore, Emily. Not tonight. Not ever again." But the night wasn't over yet. The extreme moment came suddenly, the sound of Daniel's voice echoing through the front hall. "What's going on here?" he demanded, storming inside with his ever-present box tucked under his arm. He looked at the oil on the floor, at Logan crouched near Emily, at Rosa clutching her phone. Then his eyes hardened. "What did you do to Lila?" he barked. Emily's heart sank. He hadn't seen the truth, only what Lila would want him to believe. And at that exact moment, Lila reappeared from the shadows, her hair tousled, her eyes wide with fake fear. She pointed a trembling finger at Emily. "She tried to burn me," she cried. "She hates me because you love me." Daniel's face twisted in anger as he turned toward his wife. "Emily, is this true?" The storm outside howled again, rattling the windows as Emily's breath caught in her throat. "Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. If this story has you hooked, like, subscribe, and share. Your support keeps us going." Emily's chest tightened as Daniel's words sliced the air. "Emily, is this true?" The room felt like it was closing in on her. The oil still glistened on the floor, Logan's shoes stained from stomping out the match, Rosa trembling in the corner with her phone in hand. And there stood Lila, her face innocent, her eyes watery, her hands trembling like she was the victim. Emily's voice shook. Daniel, no. She tried to set me on fire. Logan saw it. Rosa saw the oil. But Daniel raised his hand sharply, silencing her. Enough. His jaw was tight, his eyes filled with disbelief. Emily, I know you're hurt, but why would you say such things about the one person who's been helping me hold this house together? Emily felt the words cut deeper than any wound. The one person, she whispered, her voice breaking. I stood by you when you had nothing. I built with you, bled with you. And now, because I can't walk, you choose her over me? Daniel's face twitched, guilt flickering for half a second. But then Lila slipped closer, placing a delicate hand on his arm. Boss, she said softly, her voice trembling, she hates me because I've been helping you. She can't stand to see you happy. Please, don't let her turn you against me. Daniel looked down at her hand, then back at Emily. His lips pressed into a thin line. Emily, he said coldly, you're confused. This injury has changed you. You're not the same woman anymore. The words hit her like fire in her veins. Logan's voice cut in low and sharp. Daniel, open your eyes. I saw her with the match. She would have burned Emily alive if I hadn't stopped her. Rosa found her courage and stepped forward. Sir, it's true. I heard Emily's screams, I saw the oil. Lila isn't what she seems. But Lila spun around, her innocent mask cracking just enough to reveal a flash of steel. So now the staff are lying too, she hissed. All against me? Because your crippled wife can't accept reality? Emily gasped, tears burning her eyes. Daniel's fists clenched. Don't you dare call her that, he barked, his voice shaking the walls. The room froze. For the first time Daniel had snapped at Lila. But the less extreme moment followed. Lila lowered her head, tears slipping down her cheeks like an actress on a stage. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean it. I was scared. She pressed her face into her hands, her shoulders shaking with false sobs. Daniel sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. Everyone just, calm down. We've been through a fire, a storm, too much in one night. I can't think straight. He turned to Rosa. Clean this mess. Then to Logan. Leave. You've overstepped your place. Logan's jaw tightened. He looked at Emily, his eyes filled with a silent promise. I will not abandon you. Then he walked out into the night without another word. Daniel finally faced Emily again. We'll talk tomorrow, he said stiffly. Then he turned and walked Lila down the hallway toward the guest wing, his arm lightly on her back. Emily sat frozen in her chair, tears spilling down her cheeks. Rosa knelt beside her, clutching her hand. Don't give up, ma'am. He may be blind now, but the truth always comes to light. Always. Emily whispered back, her voice broken but fierce. Then I'll survive long enough to make sure it does. But the extreme moment returned like thunder. Just before dawn, as Emily dozed in her chair with her notebook still in her lap, Rosa shook her awake, panic in her eyes. Ma'am, wake up. You need to see this. She wheeled Emily to the window overlooking the front gate. There, under the dim glow of the early morning streetlight, stood Daniel and Lila. Daniel was handing her a small suitcase. Emily's heart shattered as she watched from the window. Emily's stomach dropped. Daniel's lips touched Lila's like all their years together meant like nothing. A man who had already chosen his new future. Cast their shadows. Emily's trembling fingers clutched her notebook. As if even the night was ashamed of what it saw. A single tear slid down her cheek as her heart screamed in silence. Her hands trembled so badly she almost dropped her notebook. Where are you watching from? He has forgotten me. Drop your city or country in the comments. After all I lost, if this story has your heart breaking, please like, subscribe, and share. Holding back tears of her own. Ma'am, don't let this break you. You're stronger than both of them. Emily closed her eyes. She whispered to herself, kindness is a seed, but courage is a root. Tonight I plant courage. The morning came and with it whispers. The staff walked carefully, avoiding Emily's gaze, afraid of the tension thick in the air. Daniel acted as though nothing had happened, speaking only about meetings, contracts, and the future. Lila glided around the house like a queen, giving orders softly but with authority, her smile hiding daggers. But Emily had already taken her first quiet step toward freedom, the call she made to the Grace Foundation. And now the counselor they promised was on the way. The less extreme moment arrived when Grace herself came to visit. She was a tall, calm woman with kind eyes and a voice that carried strength. Sitting across from Emily in her room, she listened as Emily poured out everything. The fall, the fire, the threats, and Daniel's betrayal. Grace didn't interrupt. She only held her hand and said, Emily, you have survived storms that would have drowned many. But you're not here just to survive. You are here to rise again. Emily wept openly, the tears cleansing something inside her. For the first time in months she felt truly seen. Grace promised legal help, medical support, and a way out if Emily chose it. But first, she added, we must expose the danger for what it really is. And fate provided the moment sooner than expected. The extreme moment came later that week during a lavish dinner Daniel hosted for potential investors in their smoke-scarred mansion. The dining table glittered with silverware, laughter bounced off the walls, and Lila moved gracefully, serving wine with her practiced smile. Emily was wheeled in quietly by Rosa, placed at the far end of the table like an afterthought. Halfway through the dinner, one of the investors asked a casual question. Daniel, who's that young lady assisting you so closely? Is she family? Daniel smiled. That's Lila, my assistant. She's been a great help since my wife's condition. The word condition stung Emily like fire. She lowered her eyes, ashamed, though she had no reason to be. But then, something happened. Rosa, who had been quietly moving dishes, suddenly stiffened. She was staring at Lila's purse, which had slipped open slightly on a side chair. Inside, a small notebook peeked out, a notebook with Daniel's company logo embossed in gold. Rosa's heart pounded. She recognized it immediately, Daniel's contract ledger, the one he kept in his office safe. She whispered to Emily, whose eyes widened. Lila had stolen from Daniel, even as she clung to him. Rosa moved quickly, pretending to pick up a fallen napkin, and slipped the notebook into her apron. Then she wheeled Emily forward, closer to the table. Emily's chest rose and fell. This was her moment. Her voice, though weak at first, rang clear across the table. Daniel, maybe you should tell your guests what else Lila has been helping herself to. The room fell silent. Daniel frowned. Emily, what are you? Rosa stepped forward, pulling the stolen ledger from her apron. She laid it on the table. Gasps filled the room. I found this in her purse, Rosa announced. Your safe ledger. Daniel's face turned pale. He snatched it up, flipping through it with frantic hands. Pages were marked, copied, some even missing. He looked at Lila, his eyes blazing. What is this? Lila's mask cracked. For the first time, true panic flashed in her eyes. I was only protecting your documents. But one of the investors cut in sharply. Protecting? Or preparing to sell them? I've seen cases like this before, Daniel. Someone close steals information and uses it against you. The guests began murmuring. Doubt spread like wildfire. Daniel's face hardened as he turned on Lila. You betrayed me? Lila's calmness shattered. Her voice rose, sharp and venomous. Betrayed you? You betrayed your wife. You made it easy for me. You brought me into this house, gave me your trust, turned your back on her, and you call me the traitor? Her voice cracked into a scream. You're nothing without me. The table erupted. Guests stood, some whispering, some glaring. Logan, who had been quietly invited by Emily to attend as her therapist, stepped forward now, his voice cutting through the noise. Everyone heard that. She just confessed. This is who you replaced your wife with, Daniel, a thief and a liar. Daniel staggered back, his pride broken, his face white with shame. The guests excused themselves one by one, shaking their heads, muttering about ruined trust and poor judgment. Silence fell at last. Lila stood trembling, her mask gone, her eyes wild. Then, without another word, she turned and stormed out of the mansion, the door slamming behind her like the final nail in her deception. Emily sat at the table, her notebook in her lap, her eyes brimming with tears, not of sorrow but of release. She had survived. She had spoken. And the truth had been revealed at last. Daniel stood frozen, staring at the empty doorway where Lila had vanished. Slowly he turned to his wife. His lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Emily met his eyes, her voice steady, stronger than it had been in months. Now you know what it feels like to be betrayed by the one you trusted most. And with that, she wheeled herself out of the dining room, Rosa and Logan walking proudly by her side. For once, Daniel was left alone, with nothing but his box of papers, his shame, and the echo of a wife who had given him everything. Emily whispered to herself as she rolled toward the garden air, kindness is my seed, courage is my root, and now I will grow again. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. If this story touched you, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories your way. And remember, never take for granted the ones who stood by you when you had nothing.